11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Yeah, welcome back. We're doing another Minuteman University podcast. We're interviewing people in the 2A community. And today we've got with us Michael Woodland. He's from M-W Tactical. He's also past Army drill instructor, amongst other things in the Army, and then a co-host with Ken Blanchard on the Black Man with a Gun podcast. So with this podcast, I emulate the Out of Order with James Kalita podcast and the Riding Shotgun with Charlie, in that we focus on 2A people and we give them the microphone. My goal here is to give Mike the microphone for an hour to talk about what he does, how he does it, and why he does it. So often we get to have our conversations with people, but they're part of a panel or they're a guest, and they only get a portion of the show. Our goal here is to give everybody the whole show. So with that, I'll shut up. Mike, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us for the hour, and tell us about what you're doing.
Hey, thanks for having me. Like the first thing, like you stated, I do the co-hosting for a Black Man with a Gun podcast. After that, it's various projects that I do. I just started the M-W Tactical podcast, which will be about 17, 18 shows. I'm gonna break it up into seasons. After that, everything else I do is related to the community and competition. Breaking it down from competition, of course, I give myself a goal that I put it out publicly, whereas putting the stress on myself of trying to get a higher class rating within the shooting sport of USPSA. At the same time, training little children, for competition shooting as well. Then when you break it down to the community stuff, I'm still, working the angle of, getting people out there to vote, and then turning around and just getting active with the various rallies, because not so much gun violence, but just violence in the state of South Carolina is rising. And the death toll had put South Carolina something like number 11 in the nation or something like that. So just getting more active within the community of trying to educate people and figure out what's going on, helping the sheriff's department with all that as well.
Right on. And then when you talk about shooting, how long have you been a competitive shooter? I know that now you're talking about like getting higher achievement level, like a higher level of achievement in it, or shoot at a higher level. But when did you start? How long have you been at?
The first time, it's like a two-part, endeavor for me. The first part of it was back in 2014, 2015, when I was introduced to competition shooting. And then I took a break for like a year and a half. And then I got back into it like October and November of last year until present.
Oh, so for you, it was like after your military career, it wasn't like you grew up doing it or anything like that?
Correct. Just like anything else in life, when you're in the military, we use competition to, push your skill level and show that the skills that you learned actually work within the military. Same thing on the civilian sector. So regardless if you're an auto mechanic, how fast can you put an engine together? Jiu-jitsu, how many people can you go through to get, that podium seat? And competition shooting, can you get the better time, just like playing golf, but on a shooting range. But I didn't grow up in shooting. I shot guns when I was younger, but I didn't get active with firearms in my hand until my military career started.
And then if we talk about that for a bit, as a drill instructor, whenever you first mentioned that, flashbacks to me, in Army basic was a different experience than I think probably anybody else in other branches, because we all have different basics, I guess. And that's probably different experience than what most people anticipate it's going to be like based off of movies and things. So I think everybody out there kind of has some idea of what a drill instructor is, but I guess what I'm trying to say in a bad way is that it's not at all what you expect going in. It turns out to be something totally different. Now, you've obviously going into the military, you had your first experience with a drill instructor on our end, but then as a drill instructor, how much of that is tied into what you're doing now? I suspect a little bit of that.
When I was a drill sergeant, a little bit of your daily life is like still now. Me living my daily life still encompasses what I was doing when I was a drill sergeant. It's just ingrained to you. Like when you first go into the military, and you, of course, I was infantry. So when you first go into the military, you're indoctrinated, by the drill sergeant. Then you go into the military, you live by the set of rules, and then as being infantry, they start teaching you how to be a drill sergeant from a private, and then it carries on. And by the time you do certain things, that's why it looks easy for the infantryman, because you've been groomed since you was first coming in until when you got that more responsibility level. One thing about it is, just like anything else, once you realize where you are in life, you don't have to do certain things, So what's the image of the drill sergeant? You always get the person with the stone face who's always yelling. I was that drill sergeant that I never yelled. I can give you that look, but I didn't see a reason to yell because I think I can get more out of people by talking to them.
Oh yeah, and that's I think what I was trying to say. Like people think drill sergeants, drill instructors are. I'm probably saying it wrong. It's been a long time. I guess we're supposed to say drill sergeant, but I say drill instructor. I don't know if that's politically correct, or why I'm saying that. Maybe it's been from the.
I think that's what they call Marines. I think that's what they call the Marines, the drill instructor.
But see, that's what happens is we all think a gunny, right? R.I.P. Right? And sure, I mean, I guess to some extent, y'all sometimes they characterize that. And there's probably one, maybe your top, is going to yell at you a little bit. But for the most part, we're all volunteers. We're not going in there. We don't need to be thrashed out or whatever. I mean, the Marines are totally different, I'm sure. But no, I've had more instruction from my drill sergeants than getting yelled at or anything. They were there to make sure I succeeded and everybody else, and to cultivate teamwork. And like you say, there's a set of rules. You kind of have to structure, I'm guessing, people from like civilian life into rules. But again, we're all volunteers. We're doing this because we want to. So I mean, that aspect of it, I guess, is I think people have a weird misconception of what drill sergeants are.
Right. I mean, all right. So the way I look at it is, whenever I do something, I want to try to go in and be the best at it. Regardless if it's shooting, tying my shoe, walking to the mailbox, I want to try to be the best at everything I can. And you put the thought process into it. Well, one thing when you're in a community where somebody's in charge and you have to follow the lead word of that person, you come quickly to understand the more somebody yells, the less they have that security within themselves. So that's just how I've always looked at it. If I got to constantly yell at you, what I'm saying, I don't have security within myself to say, hey, clean this place up and it better be clean tomorrow. Right? Why must I come in, throw stuff, and be angry sensitive, I guess you can say, in that content.
So then, as far as the safety aspect in the community, you've got quite a few campaigns going. The police, the voting. Where did these initiate? Were these contacts you had, or were these situations you saw that you needed a solution to?
My father, when I was a kid, my dad used to always say, if there's ever a problem or if the problem is presented to you, don't complain about it. Figure out a way to fix it and do it. So of course, in day-to-day life, we always hear people sitting back complaining about something. All right. So let's just take the presidential election, for instance. Everybody complains about who's selected or who's running or whatever the case may be. And we're always quick to pull out the negatives. But half the people you talk to don't even go out and vote. So my thing is, why are you complaining when you didn't even go vote? So get active, get people more involved, and let them know. Because the one thing that's really upsetting to me is when you hear somebody state, my vote doesn't matter or it doesn't do anything. It does do something, but everybody has that misconception that it must start from the top. So you got to get involved in your local political or politics to make things happen, because a lot of people don't understand or realize you can vote for people like the sheriff, the coroner, the district judge, but it's just, if you're going to vote for these people, make sure you vote for the person that views align with yours. But you have to start at the bottom and it works its way up. You can't start at the top because it never filters way down.
Well, I'm the same way. I agree. I think that it's empowering the individual, and not doing something is an action. It's a choice, right?
Correct.
And it does have consequences. So we're doing this interactive. Of course, we've got the people watching on both the YouTube side and the Gun Channel side. So a question came in from David on the Gun Channel side about the Walther shooting team, and that's one of the projects that you've, or one of the goals you've set. Do you want to address that one, or how close are you to getting on the shooting team?
Honestly, I do not know.
Yeah, it's not like they give you like some sort of scorecard where you start to check off boxes, right?
Yeah. So my whole thing is, like when I talk to Walther, it's just more like, hey, we like the content you're putting out, and okay, cool. And then they'll say like, okay, we're working on this next, or hey, can you actually steer something this way? However the conversation goes. But I never asked them directly like, what does it take to get on the shooting team? Because of course, if they like what they see, they're going to say, okay, come on board. Me personally, I know before I get on the shooting team, I know for a fact I have to raise my classification rating, and that's one of my my missions this year, because I gave myself until the end of January. I mean, the end of December of this year to get the A class rating. So as of right now, I think I'm on a good roll. So what I'm about to do, as we talked about it in the pre-chat, is with my podcast, I'm only doing like 18 or 19 shows for the podcast. Then I'm gonna conclude with season 1, and then product reviews. I'm gonna slow down on doing those as well, so I can put back in my training time, so I can make sure I get this A class rating.
Right on. And what's cool is I think it's neat is you're doing that as part of like you're sharing that progress as a project on your channel, with your progress and your like this, like where you're deciding ahead of time how to allocate your time, your major resource on developing skill, right? And so yeah, without videos on product review, you still have videos on the evolution of the training and the matches, and
Yeah,
we hear both the successes and your failures, which is, I think, honest and motivational for people too, because nobody gets to sit down and just win.
Oh yeah, I don't believe in just putting up the best stuff that happens. Like this past weekend, and here in a couple days, I'm gonna be putting up video of this Fraternal Order of Police competition that I went to this weekend. And there was one portion in that competition where my handgun fell out of my holster. Running with AR-15 from one point to the next point, and the stage was you start off at one position, and when you shoot, you got to shoot kneeling, and then you got to run about 75 yards to the next point, reloading the rifle, and then shooting standing. But the way it is, if you're a short person, there's no way possible you could have touched the wall. And by me being tall, I touched the wall, but my weight shifted and I moved the wall. And then from that point, you run another 75 yards to the final point where you use your handgun. And it was a dead sprint for me. But at the same time, I'm realizing like I didn't think about it. Whereas I didn't have the same holster that can securely, because competition shooting is different than real life shooting. Like if you was actually going to combat or whatever, because you have the mechanisms that lock your firearm in place, and my competition rig doesn't have that, because it's made more for speed. and my handgun actually fell out, and I had ran to the point. I had to run back and get it, and run back to the point and actually do it. And I'm gonna put all that up. I don't believe in hiding, progress, because I honestly believe that when you make mistakes or if you do a hiccup of some such, that's nothing more than a learning lesson.
Just a side question on that then. Is it becoming easier? Is it an issue or a challenge at all to have yourself to get filmed at the events, at the matches you go to?
No, at first it really was, because like when I was in the military, it was always, hey, keep the cameras away from us. So when I first started videotaping myself, or if somebody say, can I videotape you, it was a little uneasy at first. Now it's second nature, because in my mind I'm more like, hey, it's just content, and that's how I got to relax myself when I record myself.
Do you find, and I've asked this to competition shooters and just, I guess, people I know at matches and stuff. I don't know if you want to call them competition shooters, if you're just competing in matches because you're building it, using it as like a skill development thing. But I've had mixed answers on whether or not the video or the video or the recording adds stress, and if that's a good stress or if it's not enough of an difference to make a difference.
Far as for me, when you see me post the videos on Instagram and Facebook of me actually doing a shooting competition, I primarily use that video to study myself, so I can say, okay, I need to work on this, or maybe I should work on this a little bit more. After I scrutinize the video and realize what I need to work on, then I'll just edit the video, like put like text to it, music to it, then I post it on Instagram and Facebook.
Do you think that over time then you'll be able to maybe take pieces or a similar stage and show the progress, shoot your stage, a stage where you're maybe doing 3 or 4 targets in a row, in 1 year, and then have a similar stage a year later, and they'll put those side by side and show how much more efficient you are or better at handling or something?
I have an idea similar to what you just stated, but not so much that big of a time span. What I would like to do is I would like to get a drone and have the drone flying over me as I'm shooting, and then I can break it down and put the video editing, color coded zones, and talk about what I would do probably in this zone and probably with this target, and then come back and actually shoot it. And then if I mess up, I could talk about what actually took place and everything.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of getting the drone, but that's another added expense that you got to account for. So the drone that I was looking at getting, I think it was around about $600. It wasn't much, but everything for me, my daughter comes first before anything I do gun related.
I hear that. One of my things too is that share resources. So perhaps there's somebody out there who's a drone person. Their hobby is the drone, and they're looking for stuff to point their drone at. Maybe there's a way to hook up and share resources that way, or share skills.
Oh man, I've been looking for somebody to possibly like just follow me with a camera for like over a year, but unlike I don't work. Only thing I do is gun stuff, and but I do understand doing camera stuff or doing something like that is more of a hobby for somebody. So it'll be kind of selfish to be like, yo, I need you to follow me at least 4 hours a day, and just get drone footage or video footage.
You never know, though. That's the thing. Somebody, especially, that's one of the reasons we want to talk about stuff like this, because again, there might be somebody out there who's interested in firearms, but maybe for whatever reason they don't own them, or they just don't have the ability to shoot them and money to shoot them, and but they do have this drone hobby, and yeah, it might be a perfect fit for somebody out there. So if you've got those kind of resources, and consider going to a match. Just about every range I've been to, if you show up as a spectator, as someone who's curious about either the match or the range, most people don't mind if you hang out and just don't get in the way and observe. And sometimes they even have bleachers and stuff where you can hang out and really watch the event.
Right.
Okay, so we got a couple other questions coming in. Pete on the YouTube side said, how much of the competition of your competition shooting is based on your military experience?
Pretty much all of it. When you sit there and you look at it, the difference is in the military, I have like 7, 8 more guys with me whenever we go to do something. So if a firefight happens, it's a whole squad of people, depending on where you are and what that mission is. But far as competition going, that's just something that builds an individual skill that just reinforces, everything you've been working on prior.
Another one from the YouTube side. This one's an interesting one. What does Mike do to attract resistant demographics such as women, progressives, minorities, and those fearful of guns or anti-gun? I'm assuming he says to attract. I'm guessing either to your channel or to the shooting sports or to 2A. I'm not sure how to take that one.
Yeah, I don't know how to take that one, but if anybody gives me any resistance, I just talk to them. I don't argue with people. That's one thing I refuse to do with anybody is I will not argue with anybody. Because I am a believer of if we can't come to a common ground through communication, okay, hey, if that makes you sleep good at night, that's your belief. Hey, that's between you and God, you know. But outside of that, if somebody is resistant and conversation would normally go like, okay, well, tell me, what do you know? Okay, how does this affect you? How does it hurt you? And then I try to make my arguments based off of that. And then if I can somehow or another steer the conversation to say, okay, come to this event with me, or meet me at the range, or come to this class, I'll pay for it, or whatever it may be. Normally that opens up people's mind to show, like the gun community is not evil as people think it is.
And I don't know. I think it's unfair to obligate anybody with any kind of outreach or obligation to do outreach. I think being just an interested, honest person sharing what you're doing is the kind of leading by example that I think the community needs. And to go out and specifically try to find people is sometimes artificial, or it can seem artificial. So I don't know if anybody, I mean, everybody's, I guess, got the potential for that.
Yeah.
And I think it's short of obligation. We're allowed to just have fun and do our thing. And by doing it responsibly and we set an example, that brings people to the game. I don't think in other words, everything we do doesn't have to be a plea for people to pay attention to the Second Amendment or to appreciate firearms. By just enjoying what we do responsibly, that will bring people to the table, right?
Yes and no. But you also got to remember about the people who are affected by like a death. So somebody's door got kicked in, person A got shot up, and the house got robbed. Of course, the people who are affected by that death will look at firearms in a different manner if they wasn't already involved in the 2A community. Of course, when kids get injured by a gun in the house, that can also alter somebody's thought about firearms. But it can also work for us because, like I said, when houses get broken into and killings just start happening in your area, first thing everybody wants to do is they want to figure out how they can protect themselves. And then you have a mad rush with everybody wanting to get a firearm. So it can work both sides of the spectrum. It's just a matter of how you look at it and how you accept it into the conversation and actions of others.
Interesting question. So thanks. Appreciate you addressing it. I'm going to pivot a little bit and go back to the police jiu-jitsu training. How did that originate? Where'd that come from?
Of course, when I first got out of the military, I just retired in 2017. And I don't watch TV at all. I'll watch a movie here or there, but I don't watch TV at all. So when I first got back to Columbia, of course, I wanted to celebrate a little bit. So, I called up one of my buddies who, I stayed in contact with over the years who live here in Columbia, and asked him to like, hey, let's go downtown. Let's just hang out for a little bit. And he told me no, because Live PD is out there. And, there's the camera crew with Live PD that's here in Columbia, South Carolina. So when he said that, it sparked up an interest. I did research, found out what Live PD was. And I actually watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes. And one of those episodes, it wasn't here in Columbia, but it was one of the cops wherever their remote location is. When they was trying to take down somebody, I'm sitting there looking like, man, that should have been an easy takedown. But they're doing all this spinning around. The guy is literally rolling around and then broke loose and went off in a dead sprint run. And that's when I came up with that idea of, we got to do something, because that could have easily turned out. Whereas what if that guy did one of those spins when the cop had his hands on the bad guy? Then the bad guy put his hands on the officer's handgun, pulled it out the holster, and used it on that officer. Whereas something as simple as a simple jiu-jitsu technique could have kept that person down, and then the buddy could have came over and just put the cuffs on him or something like that.
Oh, okay, so that's interesting. So that was more of an observation, and then I guess you approached department, or did you approach individual officers?
No, so what actually ended up taking place, the gym that I go to, I want to say about 80% of everybody that attends there, the jiu-jitsu gym that I go to, are officers of the law, city, sheriff, and DNR. And I was just talking with them and asking them their thoughts of it and everything. And out of like the 15 people that I spoke to, it was only one person that was like, this wouldn't catch. So I went ahead, put it together, and went down to the sheriff's office. And I want to say within 2 or 3 hours, my professor was calling me stating like, what did you do and say? Because I'm getting like a lot of phone calls. And I explained it to him. And then he was like, okay, so I just need to direct people to you. And I was like, yeah, you can do that. And then next thing you know, I had all these officers, deputy sheriffs and police officers contacting me about doing this. And I had to explain to everybody, like, I am not, paying for this. I'm not rich like that. But I'm asking people to donate money to the GoFundMe campaign to make this happen. And at the beginning, the money was like rolling in because, anything I do, I don't make no money off of. So all the money, like if you see me say, okay, we need $4,000 for this officer campaign, all $4,000 go to that sheriff. And I break it down for you. Like if you go to the GoFundMe page, so like the gi is $200, the training for a year is $1,200. And then whatever, like however many people I want to get in, that's what we put into effect. So my original goal was to get 3 people in. And when the money started rolling in, we can only get 1 person in because it just stopped all of a sudden. And I think it was like that time frame when the bad weather came in and everybody started, giving money to the area who got hit by a tornado or a flood or something like that.
Interesting. So I didn't I don't think I've ever heard it broke down, the evolution of it like that. So basically what you're doing is removing the financial hurdle to officers that already have the inclination and understand the usefulness of this training and are interested in attending it. They just don't have the funds. I mean, those are cops that have probably families and bills, and this is $2,000, right? Basically.
Yeah,
so
that's all it is.
So, okay. So this isn't something that, like a karate school said, hey, let's try to bring more clients. And this is something where there's already a majority of law enforcement appreciate this training. And again, it's just a way to remove a financial burden to allow these cops to take this class. And this is like basically a session, right? A semester equivalent.
No, it's a whole year, for a whole year.
Okay.
So yeah, so like basically, like I want to say last year I wrapped it up in like October, November timeframe. So the person who got selected, he started October of last year. He'll finish October of this year. So, and this year the goal is to try to put 4 people through, but I haven't even really pushed it because, I've been busy with other stuff. So once I put the M-W Tactical podcast on the shelf and slow down the product reviews, then I'll start pushing it out more because it'll be easier for me.
Right on. Yeah, that seems like it could be really neat, and it could be something where just maybe combine like a sort of a crowdfunding thing with schools. If a school's out there and they want to offer a slot to a law enforcement in their area, They could have the kids each donate $5 or something, and then sponsor an officer in their area and get that going. That would be a neat thing. Yeah, so that's awesome to see the beginning of what could be potentially a really neat option. I'm always about public or civic side of helping the community, as opposed to petitioning for some sort of a bill that creates a mandatory training or something like that, through the government side. So it's kind of neat. Yeah, so thanks for taking time to clarify that a little bit. We're halfway through the show, so I like to address what you're doing, and you've got a lot of oars in the water. You're doing a lot of things, but like you say, you've got it all mapped out as far as your goals and your steps, and you've got it all in the schedule. So with that, what you're doing in mind, let's address, and this is an open-ended question, but why do you do it? I mean, it's easy enough for you to have said nope, to do something easier, to do some job that doesn't involve putting it out there, challenging yourself and then sharing that journey with everybody, I believe inspirationally. But what drives you? I know it can't be funding. You're not doing this with a giant paycheck, and it's a no-brainer. I don't think you came from the showbiz side where this was just something to do to keep the limelight. It seems like you're, like a lot of people, not necessarily comfortable with the camera, but you're willing. So what drives you? What's the why for MW Tactical?
For me, it's all about showing what I can do, because everything I went through in life, if I can do it, I look at anybody can do it. It's just a matter of the dedication and time that you put into it. Even when you sit there and you look at it, I've been shot, I've been blown up. I did all this other stuff, but I do appreciate life because of the instances and circumstances that I went through. But even when you sit there and you look at it, whatever ailment I have, I'm not going to allow that ailment to slow me down. So if anything, that should be enough motivation for somebody to say, okay, if he can do it, I can do it, but I also seen a disconnect within, the Second Amendment community, because I'm a firm believer in, once you get rid of the Second Amendment, you lose all your other rights, as a citizen. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to push somebody else to say, okay, let's rally the troops. All right. Of course, for the people, because, I can sit here and talk and somebody might not like me. Oh, I don't like the way he talks. I don't like the way he looks. Or I don't like his mannerisms. But somebody like Gwebs can do and say the same exact thing I'm saying. And the next thing you know, you got 100 more people following behind you, So it's not about the limelight for me, because, I really don't care about attention like that. And of course, the people who can actually, contest to the stuff I do, when I meet people, I start branching people off. Hey, do you know this person? Do you know this person? This is somebody you need to link up with. I think this person will help you out, like the whole networking portion. But for me, it's just about, love for country, love for self, love for, the Second Amendment, and love for firearms, So it's not about popularity for me. It's not about limelight. It's not about money. It's just about love and respect.
Right on. Awesome answer. So we've got people watching. We can ask questions a bit about, if you have any questions about what all Mike's doing or the how, feel free. Otherwise, we've got a couple of questions from before, and then we can get into the how you do it. So, again, part of this is to encourage people to do stuff and inspire them, but also motivate them and give them some tips. So you're fairly fluent with the platforms, the major ones out there. You're on the YouTube for sure, and on the Instagram, but you're on the GunTube, you're on GunStreamer, GunChannels. How are you doing this? All phones, computers?
It's all on computers. I break it down when I do stuff. Only thing I attempt to do every day is Instagram, but outside of that, everything else I do, like I'll do something on Monday, I do something else on Wednesday, and then something else either Thursday or Friday. Because I honestly believe if you try to do everything within one day, you're going to stress yourself out. You're going to blow a tire. And then next thing you know, you're stressed out, falling to the wayside. So you have to organize yourself, and you have to stick to that time frame whenever you do something.
So I'm guessing I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have the year planned out, and do you look at it like 12 months and so many weeks, and this project's going to take this much time? And do you look at it as an overall project as opposed to just adding bricks and seeing what happens?
No, my schedule, literally, I only plan out far as 3 weeks. Now if something comes up, so say like if GWeb say, hey, we're doing this in September and this is March, I'll put it on the calendar, but I will let you know, like, oh, I'm not guaranteeing, I'm gonna make that, but if something comes up, you got to keep it open. But far as me, as far as anything I'm doing, I only plan out at least 3 weeks in advance.
Right, almost about 3 weeks from now. We had a question before from Snob. Are you going to KD's event in St. Louis?
That's the plan. Even when I talked to KD about it, I mentioned it beforehand, like Memorial Day weekend is going to be a tough weekend, So right now I'm saying yes, but if the little assistant calls and say, "Yo, what's up? Let's do this." Okay, I got to go the other direction and get her.
Gotcha. Snob was saying on the Gun Channel side that he'll bring his drone out. He's going to be there, and you guys maybe work with the drone a little bit there.
Oh yeah. Like I said, if I'm there, no, I'm definitely willing to make that work.
Right on. So another question, another good open-ended question from John Z on the Gun Channel side here is, if I can flip over to it, where do you see yourself? Where do you see MW Tactical in 5 years?
One thing about me where I see M-W Tactical is I want it to be big enough where everybody, is the go-to place for firearms training. The whole goal for me is to get at least 2 to 3 females and, at least 3 guys, whereas like when I'm traveling around doing something, the mission is still going forward. 5 years.
Kind of like what Jeff's got going with Gear Report, where multiple people are efforting in the same project.
Yeah, something like that, But with me, within 5 years, I probably still will be doing competition shooting. Probably not at the momentum I'm doing it right now. But because like I said, once again, I don't work. All I do is gun stuff, unless something comes up and I'll be like, hey, I want to go out to California and let's shoot guns out there, or let's see what we can do out there. So sometimes it's spontaneous for me. Other times it's just okay, this right here is what I want to do. Like even when I came up with the desire to get A class within a year, that started off from a conversation with a friend of mine who stated he made A class within a year. So I was like, okay, if you did it, I can do it. So I gave myself a year. So that's where that came from, and sometimes it comes up in conversation, or if somebody says, hey, you can't do this, or do you think you can do this, I'll think about it, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna put it in motion. I'm gonna try to do this, and then I just put it out to everybody, and then I work for it. So 5 years from now, to be honest with you, 4.5 years, stick around and find out where I'll be at and what I'm doing.
Right on. So you're talking A class in USPSA?
Correct.
And there's 2 major handgun disciplines, I guess, IPSC and IDPA, and you're the USPSCA, which is IPSC is the international one, I guess. So they're both based off of scenario type, bays, or I'm trying to say the each individual scenario is based off of a CCW type of thing, where you're going to engage multiple targets and stuff. Have you thought about, once you've got to the A class, going to a different discipline? I guess my long way of asking, or do you like USPSA? USPSA.
I like USPSA better than IDPA, but I used to shoot IDPA all the time. When I first started shooting, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was in Alabama when I first started shooting both competitions, and I was the only one on the range who was, African American, and the rules didn't apply the same to me. So it was like I was being looked at to get disqualified faster than other people. But even when you sit there in IDPA, because IDPA was the concealed carry portion of it, um, it was the silly rules that kind of took away from it. Like if you drop a magazine with a round in it, that's a penalty. Well, if I was to do that in real life, because that's what you're really training for. But if I do that in real life, I don't care if it's a round in that magazine because, obviously I already thought about something, did a reload, and I'm engaging whatever I have to do. Um, they penalize you for stuff, whereas they took the perception of you wasn't behind cover, you know. And I was more like, okay, that's just too much thinking, for something that you should be training on. Like, let me do something and get better at it. Whereas USPSA, it just looked a little bit more fun. And, it was the concept of, okay, how fast can you get from point A to point B and execute, your reloads, engage 2 or 3 targets, within this course of fire or this area. How would you move it? How would you figure it out? Your stage plan. And that one was more interesting to me, overall. So,
Right
but
on.
between the two, like I said, it was just USPSA took the lead over IDPA.
What about something like 3-gun or cowboy shooting or one of the shotgun sports?
I've tried cowboy shooting one time, and it's very interesting. I had fun when I did it, but I only done it one time, and I was there spectating at the range this day. And somebody asked me if I was willing to try it. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll try it." And once again, skill set. If you're not familiar with it, you have to practice at it to be good at it. Because I was nowhere good at that, you know. But I had fun overall, so that's something I've done. But I don't see myself going back to the cowboy shooting. 3-gun. I done 3-gun 2 times, and the one thing about 3-gun shooting is that once you get into it, it is pretty expensive. So if you got the funds to do that, or if you got enough time to reload your ammo, by all means do it. Um, don't let someone else talk you out of it. Actually, you need to go in and do it for yourself. And I've done it, like I said, 2 times. I liked it, but for me, I just don't see myself doing 3-gun. Like, what is it, like 3 or 4 times a month, however it works out. But the 2-gun competitions, I look at that as a little bit more, where I was raised at in the military, shooting AR-15 and transitioning to a handgun. But one thing about it is I have to travel up north to like North Carolina and Virginia to participate more in those sports in this region where I live at.
That's a shame. I'm with you there. I don't really, the 3-guns doesn't appeal to me at all. It's too fast and it's too much of the gameplay. Where the 2-gun stuff, we are lucky to have an awesome 2-gun action match here in Tucson. It used to be called Axe. But yeah, that's frustrating when it's not that close to you.
Yeah. But I enjoy watching 3-gun. I can sit there and watch it all day.
That's true, and that's something. Actually, I never thought about that, but it would be, especially with drones and everything now, and the little lipstick cameras and stuff. That's going to be better and better for what am I trying to say? Like, transmitting or showing, broadcasting how interesting those events can be because they're so fast.
Yep.
And people are so good. Couple more questions coming in. I think this one's awesome from David on the Gun Channel side. This goes back to the motivation and the why, I suppose. He's asking, how do you deal with failure? Does it hold you down for a while or just move on to the next one?
I look at failure as a teacher. You know what I'm saying? So if I fail at something, why did I fail at it? All right. So let's just happen to look at one stage when it comes to shooting. Why did I fail? Did I take off too slow? Was I too slow on the draw? Was my sights lined up? Targets too far away, too close? What did I do wrong? And then once I figure that out, you know what I'm saying? I don't beat myself up about it, but I have to know the answer before I can actually move on to it. So once I figure it out, okay, now it's in the past. I won't dwell on it. Move on to the next thing. So I'm like that with everything. So if somebody was to tell me no, and this is the reason why, okay, what could I have done better to possibly get a yes answer? Or what could I have said differently? Or how can I present it myself in a more positive way? You know, but for me, failure is nothing more than the teacher to life and your next experience.
Right on. You don't look for it, you don't seek it, but you can appreciate it as the consequence. It's one of the two consequences we always have, right?
Correct.
An interesting question from unknown user on the YouTube side. What are the core tenets of your training? What do you focus on?
First thing I focus on is making sure I get a solid grip. You know, when I pull the holster gun out of the holster. Next thing is sight picture and sight alignment, because I'm moving so fast. You know what I'm saying? I want to keep that steady, you know, and possibly get faster, you know, if I can. Whereas when I'm looking at the target, you know, I just want to drill that in so it becomes second nature. I really don't have to think about it. Outside of that, it's just the movement techniques. You know, like, of course, you know, I had reconstructive surgery on my knee 2 times in the past. So, of course, you know, me moving left to right is not as fluid as me moving, you know, forward and to the rear. You know, so that's some things I have to consider of, okay, how can I take this corner and be smooth and keep it fluid versus as, okay, I know I can't take this corner and I'm just going to do this just because. You know what I'm saying? I'm always looking for the betterment of how do I need to do something. But when I'm practicing, that's one thing I always practice is, okay, do I want to take this corner at a 90 degree or do I want to round it at a 70 degree and stay fluid and stay moving? I need to make sure my sight picture, sight alignment, my breathing, you know what I'm saying? So it's only like really 3 or 4 components that I really focus on, but it helps me out with everything else I'm doing.
Right on. I have a feeling I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it from David on the gun channel side. What round do you like to shoot best in plinking and competition?
No, 9mm.
I figured. But it's economical, and that's what it's all about, right? Do you ever go out just plinking? Take the daughter out plinking?
No, actually, I don't even take my daughter out to the range. And you know, one thing it was me dealing with my baby's mother in court. That's one thing she requested is that my daughter has to reach a certain age before I can take her to the range and start shooting. You know, but like even when I have her, because you know my daughter is so she pays attention to what you do. But even right now, I wouldn't take her to the range because I don't have her all the time. You know, I only have her like certain weekends. So in the process of all that, we do talk about the 4 firearm safety rules, what to do if you happen to see a gun laying on the floor or on the table, just in the open, and you know, just the different aspects of, you know, being aware and being safe. Far as her touching a gun and shooting a gun, the only thing she does is she'll see it and she'll tell me where mine is, and she'll ask me when we leave the house, do I have peace? You know, so within the next 2 to 3 years, we'll start working on some fundamental techniques and get her ready, because I think if she was to start shooting between, you know, the age of 5 and 6, by the time she turns 16, she's going to surpass me by a whole lot.
Oh yeah, I mean I've seen kids that are out shooting adults on the ranges in the competition sometimes.
Yes.
Let's see. So we'll wrap it up then. We're getting close to the top of the hour, and I definitely want to. You've got a lot of oars in the water, like I mentioned, and I think I've been showing your website a bit, but you've got more than just the website out there. So let's talk about, you know, in the realm of how you do things, where people contact you, how they can get involved with some of your efforts.
Okay. First thing I always tell people, if you want to contact me, the easiest way would be to call 803-250-1256 or email me at info@m-wtactical.com. If you don't want to use either one of those platforms, you can always go to Instagram or Facebook and send me a message on there as well, and I'll respond to everybody who contacts me. If you want to follow and support the law enforcement campaign that I'm doing, you can go to GoFundMe.com/LEO training. And there's a description and video there that talks about all that as well. Outside of that, everything else is just local that I do, and I don't really ask for anybody to help me with that. And I post some things I do in relation to that, but not so much everything. But if anything, like I said, if you haven't done so, please follow me on Instagram, and you can follow me under at MunitionsWeaponsTactical, or just do a search for M-W Tactical, and it'll come up, and you'll see a picture of me pointing a rifle downrange. Go to Facebook and just look up M-W Tactical, and the same thing on Twitter is M_W Tactical. But you can also go to the website www.m-wtactical.com. And if you go to the media links page, right there is a direct link to everything that I'm a part of.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And yeah, you're killing it with that. You've definitely established it. You start typing in M- and W, and you're right there. So that's working. Let's see. I was just about to ask you a question, and then I got distracted by Twitter. I'm blaming Twitter on that one. All right, I'll go back to default to questions. So we got another question from Dave on the Gun Channel side. What do you think is more beneficial to any shooter, a real range or backyard shooting ranges?
Either or, wherever you're getting trigger time at, as long as you're applying the fundamentals and working on the skill, all right, you're going to get the same results. One thing about a real range is you're open up to other visitors, and then somebody who can be more experienced than you that can help you out a little bit more, or somebody can see like you're struggling with something, they can give a little bit of insight. But of course, if you're at your backyard range, more than likely it's just you or whoever you invite to come there.
Oh, now I'm distracted. I thought I had a pretty good question, and I completely lost it there. But it's been a great hour with you, Mike. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to chat with us here and explain, what you've been doing and how people can get involved. Now your camera's being weird. There you go. But thanks, Mike. It's been a pleasure, and it's neat to see a project like yours or multiple projects like yours in this stage, because I suspect you're gonna be very successful as time goes on, and people that are watching now can say they saw when, or they were there when.
But hey, like I said, thanks for having me. Anytime you want to talk, like I said, feel free, hit me up, and I'm willing to come on anytime you like.
Sounds good. I guess we'll chat again on Tuesdays, where we both are regulars on Ghost Chat. We didn't even talk about too much Black Man with a Gun podcast. Let's talk about the podcast a bit. You've got your podcast, but then you're also co-host with Black Man with a Gun. When does that air?
Right now, Ken, he puts it out every Friday or Saturday. So it depends on what he has going on. But majority of the time, he puts it out on Saturday. If it conflicts with him on Saturday, like when he had to go down to Florida and do the podcast fest, he will release it on Friday. So if you want to check out the Black Man with the Gun podcast, you can either go to his website, which is blackmanwiththegun.com. And then, of course, once you go on there, you can see the various links and it'll direct you to the podcast. If you want to download the Black Man with the Gun app, you can go to your Google store or your Apple store, download Black Man with the Gun, the app. And then from there, you can actually listen to the podcast, or you can go to your various platforms, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, whatever your favorite one is. And just look up Black Man with the Gun and then check out all the episodes we do on there.
And Ken is OG. He's been doing this longer than anybody as far as
man, yes, he is the godfather of podcasting within the gun community.
There's a couple of gun authors or writers that have been doing it longer than Ken, and then a couple of radio shows have maybe been around that long. But yeah, Ken is pretty cool. It's neat I guess we didn't even talk about that. Maybe you come back on and with Ken maybe sometime, and we'll chat about your guys' projects.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
That's good. Thanks again, Mike. I appreciate it. And till next time.
All right, thank you.
We'll end it here with my friend Charles in Tucson, who actually I'll be chatting with tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. The guys and gals at GunWebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching GunWebsites.com.